So, the plan was that I would get the train to Newcastle Airport, stay overnight in a hotel, and fly to Gran Canaria the following morning. Unfortunately, due to industrial action on the trains, that was going to be difficult, so I travelled the previous day and stayed in central Newcastle, leaving me with a day to spend in Newcastle. I decided to visit the Lang Art Gallery because A. It's free, B. It's an easy walk from my hotel, and C. It has lots of 19th and early 20th century stuff which I rather like. Also, as it turns out, it has a fairly decent cafe as well. The gallery is named after Alexander Lang, who lived from 1828 to 1905. He came from Forfarshire and worked for a brewing company before he arrived in Newcastle in 1849 to start a beer bottling business, which later diversified into production of liquors and spirits. He donated £30,000, which is about 4 million in today's money, for the construction of the gallery. However, as he was not an art collector, he had no works of art to donate, so when it first opened it contained no artworks at all. Lang left the task of filling the gallery to others, which thankfully was eventually done. I started off at a cabinet full of exotic vases. I believe these are the work of Norman Carling, who lived from 1902 to 1971. There is also this Art Nouveau tray. I think this is a tray manufactured by the Johann von Schwarz company in Nuremberg. A quick Google image search will reveal that the broad pattern of the woman's head in profile and the irises was used many times in varying colour schemes. They have a permanent exhibition called Northern Spirit, containing works relating to the northeast. Some of the buildings depicted still exist, but some, such as the Royal Arcade, were demolished to make way for the Central Motorway. Thankfully, Newcastle Central Station is still with us. These watercolours of the station, and the one of the Royal Arcade, were painted by John Dobson, although the figures inside the station were added by his friend John Wilson Carmichael. But that's not where his talents ended. Oh no, he was the architect in the north of England during his lifetime. He is responsible for Newcastle Central Station, the Royal Arcade, and Eldon Square, although most of his work there has now been demolished. He designed some 100 private houses and over 50 churches, and worked with Richard Granger on redeveloping central Newcastle. Actually, this watercolour was painted before the station was built as a guide to how it would look, and the point of view is not far from my hotel's window, although I was 6 stories up. Back at the art gallery, there were many more watercolours. This one, by Peter Peterson Toft, shows the bridge which still carries the East Coast Main Line. This painting of the Tyne is by John Dobson's friend James Wilson Carmichael, who painted the figures on the painting of the inside of Central Station. Head back to the hall at the foot of the stairs and you will see this. It's a wool tapestry from 2008 by Paul Noble called Villa Joe. The villa can be seen at the bottom left of the tapestry. The rocky formations take inspiration from Henry Moore's sculptures, so it seems appropriate that one of these, named Seated Woman, Thin Neck, stands beside it. This dates back to 1964. At the top of the stairs you can see this stained glass window. It is J. Edgar Mitchell's work and was commissioned for the opening of the Lang Art Gallery in 1904. It depicts art, symbolised by the central figure, blessing human representations of painting, the woman on the right with brushes and a palette, sculpture, the man on the left with a hammer, and the decorative arts. On the far left, a woman with a vase, and on the far right, a woman with embroidery. The first room I visited had an exhibition of photographs taken by Chris Killip, taken in the early 1970s in and around Newcastle. Most of the shipyard workers' terraced houses have since been demolished. Then we have the first room of predominantly Victorian art. This is a Grecian flower market by John William Waterhouse, not an original member of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, but a follower of their principles. This one is a study for The Unknown by John Charles Dolman. No idea what's going on here, and I'm not sure anybody else knows either. Some sort of chimp revelation, 2001 style, maybe? This is a bit more straightforward. It's a portrait of Elizabeth, the daughter of former Prime Minister Lord Asquith, painted by Augustus John around 1921, so not Victorian. Its title is The White Feather Boa. Did you know that a boa is so named because of its supposed resemblance to a boa constrictor? I did not know that. Next, a Japanese woodblock print entitled Ishibe, attributed to Utagawa Hiroshige and Utagawa Kunisada. Utagawa is the name of the school of woodblock artists they belong to. Up until 2003, Ishibe used to be a small town in the Shiga prefecture in Japan, but has since become part of the city of Konan. NSK has a bearing plant there, should you be interested. Next up is one of my favourites. This is Harold Knight's In the Springtime from around 1909. He really captured that dappled light. This is Cockle Gatherers by Arthur Hardwicke Marsh from 1885. Arthur married twice and had a total of 7 daughters, one of which was the militant suffragette Charlotte Marsh. The next room contained the painting Isabella and the Pot of Basil by William Holman Hunt, a founder member of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. It illustrates a poem by John Keats based on a story from Boccaccio's Decameron. Isabella's lover, Lorenzo, is murdered and she buries his severed head in a pot of basil, as you do. Then things start to get a bit more abstract. This is Papua by Gillian Ayres from 1988. Is it entirely abstract? I get the feeling of a busy dockside from it. Gillian Ayres once taught art to London schoolchildren alongside Shirley Williams after the war. More weird and wonderful abstract stuff. This one is known as Linked Forms from Sunderland artist Nora Waterhouse from 1963. This is A Dark Pool by Dame Laura Knight. Dame Laura Knight had a long and varied career. Exhibitions of her work have been held regularly since 1901, including 2 at the Lang Art Gallery in 1933 and 2013. This was painted by John Randall Bratby and is entitled Gloria with Angst. He is considered the founder of kitchen sink realism. Gloria was a favourite model who appears in several similar paintings, often staring directly at the viewer. This is Spirit of Contemplation by Albert Toft from 1901 and purchased by the gallery in 1915. Note that an earlier plaster version lacks the strategically placed scroll added for modesty's sake. Here we see Granger Street by Louis H. Grimshaw from 1902. Granger Street is named after Richard Granger, who, with the help of John Dobson, was responsible for the redevelopment of the area. Note the white globe-shaped electric lights, which contrast with the yellower light from the gas lights. Puts me in mind of Renoir's paintings of Paris at night. After lunch in the cafe, I looked round the remaining artworks, but then set off for the Baltic flour mills through some dangerously icy streets and across the Gateshead Millennium Bridge. They've obviously fallen on hard times because I didn't see much flour being made. But I did find a lot of abstract art. Not sure about these. Probably the most impressive things here are the musicians made out of rope. I think these are by an artist named Gidri Bawley from Bangladesh. Also, on the top floor, they have The Waiting Gardens of the North by Iraqi-American artist Michael Rakovitz. Nice enough, but I think some of the plants were struggling a bit. I reckon it was the coldest day of the winter so far, and there wasn't a huge amount of sunlight. And that's about it. Took a few snaps from the top of the Baltic and then headed back to the hotel. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, subscribe, whatever. Thanks. Bye.